Mr. Owen Silavwe. Looking forward to speaking to you today for Quasi Magazine and our TableTalk section. You are the Managing Director of Copperbelt Energy Corporation, one of the leading companies in the energy space in Zambia, and a very important one at a time such as this. So we'll start our chat today from the beginning, get to know you a little bit, starting with your upbringing. And, how did your upbringing shape the person that you are today?
Thank you, Rohit, and thanks for inviting me to this conversation. I mean, I haven't had this in a while, so this is sort of interesting. And just with that question, you take me back to my very young, sort of years where I started from. So I grew up in Mufrida. And at the time, and I think Mufrida was a very interesting place to sort of grow up from. When I look at our time there, we obviously thought we were living in the best town in the whole world. I mean, obviously, you hadn't been anywhere else. That's sort of the only place we've been. Other than Mufrida, of course, I had been to. It was sort of fashionable those days during holidays to visit relatives. I would go to other towns, mostly on the Copper Belt and not outside the Copper Belt. But I grew up in a sort of typical Zambian compound. My father was a teacher. My mother was a sort of housewife, business lady. And so we had this sort of typical Zambian life growing up in a mine township called Kankoyo in Mufrida. I mean, my father sort of moved around, but we spent a lot more time in Kankoyo. So I basically grew up in that setup. It was, when I look back, Kankoyo is a typical place where it's kind of sandy. It's in a way it's a desert. We didn't see it that way, of course. I mean, we loved the place. We thought it offered a lot of adventures for us as young kids. So we'd play more or less what today is so valued, beach football. We didn't even know this could qualify to be sort of, typical beach football. Our foot wasn't really on a sort of grass pitch. It was a sort of sand pitch. And very competitive. I mean, as we grew up, we'd play football in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evenings. Except my dad was, well, let me just say my parents, both my mother and father, they were sort of very strict. So my mother was extremely religious. My dad was religious in a way, but quite liberal as well. But in terms of just the sort of values they wanted to impact, and being a teacher in those days, so you always had time. I mean, they would let us play, but we always knew that we needed to be home by 18 hours. Typically, if you are late, 19 hours was like the latest. And I grew up in quite a big family. We were a big family at the time. We are born 9 boys, 2 girls. So it was a family of 11 children. And if you think about those days, it was typical that it wasn't just this close, sort of nuclear family that, lived in one house. So we also had
cousins.
Exactly. So we had 2 other ladies staying with us, and these were older than us, and we looked to them as our sort of elder sisters. I just came to learn later that actually we were not really our sort of siblings in that sense. But I mean, it was a very happy family. I mean, I give a lot of respect to both my mother and my father. They are late now. My dad just died not too long ago in May this year. How they managed to bring up 9 kids. I only have 3 kids myself today.
And you can feel the stress.
I can. And I'm certainly much better off than my daddy was at the time. But somehow they managed to send us to school. They managed to to educate all of us. And in a sense, I would say they managed to bring up all of us with, I would say, generally good values. And I have a lot of respect for the guys. I really appreciate. I think the great job that they did bringing us up. We lived in a very, very friendly neighborhood. I remember you could literally eat wherever, lunch found you, and, our neighbors would do the same. Christmas those days was such a big thing. You would go from home to home, eating, and you literally never slept. You probably slept at 5, in the morning, but you had such a wonderful, wonderful time. So it was this sense of community, this sense of belonging. And no, that I think made for such a great childhood. But also I think the lack of exposure, because this sense of lacking something only comes in if you understand how others live. I don't think at the time we really cared, because we didn't, if anything, know that we really lacked anything. And I think in a sense, in terms of the essentials, we literally had all the essentials. I think there was a time when in Zambia it was like that. I mean, people would sort of manage to have all the 3 meals, and I think we did. We had all sorts of games in the evening. If you remember those days, there would be dancing, and sometimes you play all sorts of other games, sort of trying to find hidden stuff and things like that. So, and you had no games, by the way. There were no computers. It
was interactive and physical.
Yes. And times came when you had to go in the bush and play all sorts of games in the bush, and sort of collect fruits. That was quite typical. And some of these fruits, I don't see them nowadays. But so I mean, I'm quite fond of Mufrida, I should say, and sort of going to the town center was such a big thing. You sort of loved it. So I went to primary school in Mufrida. There's a school called Chankwa Primary School. It's now a high school, actually, I should say, at the moment. It was one of those very well-designed school when story buildings were sort of not common in Zambia. That school was already sort of story. It had 2 stories. And so we could brag about, sort of having the best school and primary school, for that matter, in Mufrida. For my secondary school, I went to Kantanshi. Secondary school. At the time, it was, I think, one of the best schools, I would say, in Zambia, and quite competitive.
Quite renowned.
Yes.
It was renowned.
I mean, I don't know how it's doing at the moment. I've actually made an appointment to visit the school. I haven't been since I left Kantanshi. And what I like is that a group of us have come together, set up the Kantanshi alumni. And I think we're making a lot of progress in terms of just trying to help the school. And we think we're quite committed. So we think there will be a lot of good things. I think that will be coming in the way of that school. But again, I have very fond memories of that school. We had a good time while at that school. I remember I finished as the highest student at grade 12 at the time. That was in 1990.
6 points?
No. I won't talk about the points. 6 points was unheard of at the time. I think the guys who are getting sort of 6, 7 points were the guys who went to Mpelembe.
Okay.
So it wasn't common at my school to get 6 points. I mean, if you got like
11
single digit, you were so great. Typically, if you are the highest, you get like 9, 10 points. In that order. But I have very fond memories, as I said, at school and Florida in general.
No, that's very interesting. I like the way you've painted the picture, which is, it's sort of a forgotten picture in today's time with how kids are growing up now. Everyone is on their smartphones. But back then it was really, you played outside, you were outside the whole day. But I just want to touch on if you could maybe pinpoint 1, 2, or 3 values that your parents inculcated in you, in just just a nutshell, what would you say were those values that you learned from your father and your mother?
No, look, for as I said, because they are quite religious people,
Yes.
particularly my mother, I think their most important value for them was respect. Just respect, whether somebody is young, is old, respect was such an important value for them.
Yeah.
And, for my parents, a human being was a human being. And one of the things that it was so important to them was sort of just being open. So they sort of opened up our home to our relatives and, to sort of our neighbors. Actually, this was sort of my assessment later in my life, as I grew up. What I noticed is that I think both my parents sort of grew up in a period where it was very typical to sort of share food. So to enjoy food, you need to bring together a number of people, and so it was so common in our home rather to sort of invite people for meals. And so that value for me is quite important.
Yeah.
I think I don't necessarily do that in my life, but what I find is I always enjoy shared meals with sort of friends, people. And what I see is that even in sort of my career as a leader, I basically try and make sure that we get probably a moment or two where we sort of
a meal.
get to share a meal and just have fun. Because I also believe that one of the best things that God has given human beings is food, and you really have to make sure that you enjoy food. It's great. It's
And
great.
you bond over it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
okay, so you're an electrical engineer.
Yes.
And later transitioned into management. When you were growing up, did you always know what you wanted to do? At what point did this vision become clear to you?
So as I said, I grew up in a very competitive neighborhood. And again, these things are things that sort of become apparent to you as you grow up and you look back, and you actually think that those parents were quite competitive. It's almost like competition amongst the parents. I would hear from these guys, sort of overhear them, as they speak to each other. So this would be like end of term and having a conversation, and it would be like, so how did your child perform? Oh no, he was number one. And those days, these things meant a lot. To come out number one, number two, in class and all that. It was, and I think it was encouraged by both the schools and the teachers as well. And what was valued most, I think, in terms of the subjects, was really mathematics and science. So if you like, today we call it STEM.
STEM.
I think that was really the big thing. So if you could do well in sciences and mathematics, then you're a great guy. I sort of grew up with that mentality. It's only later I realized that no, we really have to respect people's talents. Everyone is talented in mathematics and science. But I grew up believing that a great guy is a guy who can solve a hard one. Yeah. And therefore, I was just brought up like that. And I always knew I'm going to do something to do with sciences. To be honest, I didn't know what I was going to do. In fact, I was leaning more towards medicine. I thought I was going to do medicine. And part of the reason, I think a part of me was sort of unimpressed with what I used to say each time we went to the hospital. And that was like more when I went to secondary school. Competition was quite stiff. And the most competitive school was engineering. And this same thing of thinking I'm the hard guy, I'm getting the grades. So I thought, look, I think I'll do engineering. Actually, when it came to, because you had to make 3 choices, it's one of the moments in my life where I've shown a lot of indecision, because I made my first 3 choices, and I went back to my room and thought about this thing. When I went back, I changed it. And so initially, my first choice was medicine. Engineering was second, and third, I can't remember, it was something. So I went to my room, thought about this. I went to my neighbor who was sort of senior to me. He was doing civil engineering, and he told me, you must be crazy. With those grades, you want to do medicine? You want to be working with corpses and,
Yeah.
skeletons. You must be mad. So I thought about it. I went back and said, no, look, I want to change. And the dean at the time said, oh, that's fine. You can change. So my first choice became engineering, second medicine. I went back. Following day in the morning, I woke up. I literally didn't sleep because I kept thinking about this. Because I'd also told my mom that I was going to do medicine. And mom was like, oh, great. My son's going to be a doctor.
And being in those
days,
point of pride, eh?
Of course. I mean, doctors are so well respected. So that was sort of my expectations of my parents. So in the morning, I went back. I said, no. I want to change. And the dean said, look, I'm giving you the last chance. After this, I don't want to see you at my door. But so I changed back to, medicine first, engineering. In the afternoon, after classes, I told myself, no, this is a terrible mistake. I need to do engineering. And when I just showed up by the door, the dean of the school was so upset with me. He shouted, he said a few things. And I told him, look, this is the last moment. And he called somebody, said, come, you're the witness. If this guy comes back, I'm chasing him. I'm chasing him. So I made my last changes. And at the time, I wish we had phones. I wanted to phone my mom and said, sorry, I'm not going to do medicine. But remember, there were no phones. So I couldn't communicate with anybody. But I said, I'll tell them when I go back. When I go back home. So that's how I ended up in engineering anyway. It was such an indecisive moment in my life. And I think after that, I probably told myself never to be so indecisive.
It was a point of learning.
Yes, it was. Definitely it was.
So you are now the CEO of Copperbelt Energy. From that story that you've told us, I mean, we're sitting very near the UNZA campus, but you have progressed to become now the MD of CEC. And at some point, you obviously had to make the transition from engineering into management. Could you just walk us through what that process was like for you, moving from the hands-on to now growing into management? You've already talked about your indecisive process of choosing engineering. I take it there was probably more decisiveness in charting the career path. So how did that transition go from engineering all the way up to now management?
So look, I mean, I actually think I've had a wonderful career, I should say. I think I'm quite happy that I ended up doing electrical engineering. I think I've enjoyed my career path. I joined Power Division, which was a division of ZCCM at the time, Zambia Consolidated Copper Mines, as obviously fresh graduate on development. So I worked in various sort of departments. One of the things about my career is that, and I say this not to boast, but I was one of the sort of fortunate people to rise quite fast. Almost when I look back, every 2 years, I was getting a promotion. I was getting a promotion, and therefore I quickly got to a point where I was sort of becoming a generalist. So in a sense that, I'm managing engineering processes, I'm managing people, and I'm managing finance. Okay, and so I could start sensing some gaps in the things that I was doing. But I'm a person who believes in growth. I think everybody needs to make sure that on an annual basis they're actually growing. Not just in their career, even as in sort of your individual life, even in terms of, let's say, your wealth as an individual. So you need to sort of give yourself targets. I sort of learned this in my I think early 30s, and I'll probably share with you. I always think I should have learned it earlier. In terms of trying to set goals, on a sort of an annual basis. So when I started working, and the issue was that when I was leaving UNZA, some of my lecturers told me to say, at the time it was, very prestigious to remain at UNZA get sponsored to do a master's and then a PhD and come back and start teaching. These guys were called the fellows. So you joined sort of the fellows. And most of the lecturers thought I was going to join that program. However, I didn't join it because I'm the second born. I considered myself the firstborn because the firstborn is a lady. Not that I don't have respect for my sister, but I sort of just took up the family challenge. I thought my family needed
someone to step up and
exactly. And so I sort of gave myself that challenge. And so I decided, look, if I go for masters, go for PhD, I'll probably be late in terms of trying to be rich. I always wanted to be rich. I didn't actually want being rich more. But I just told myself, I need to make money because at that time I had a little bit of exposure. I looked at, I had met people who are sort of rich, they had made money.
You had seen what the other side looked like.
So I had seen the other side of the world. And so I said, look, there's no reason why we should remain in that position. I mean, there's obviously a good reason why we should do whatever people do to get, to wherever they are. So I told myself, I said, I need to get into industry. Somehow I believed that to make money, I needed to be in industry.
Yeah.
I did that. I got into industry. When I started working, a part of me was missing the academia. So I told myself, okay, to just bridge the gap, maybe I should do a master's in engineering. So after working for like 3-4 years, I decided to pursue a master's. So I actually left work for 2 years.
Okay.
And I went and pursued the master's. Yes, full time. I went and pursued the master's in Sweden in engineering, in electrical engineering.
Yeah.
And then I came back. Fortunately, my company took me back. So I came back and I continued working, and I sort of progressed in my career. Basically, going up the corporate ladder. And then, as I said, I sort of got into what I would call a more general manager. It wasn't called general manager, of course, but as I said, it's a combination of me managing engineering, the commercial side of the business and all that. So I then realized that I kind of had a gap in my understanding of the commercial, the financials, and I thought to myself, look, I think I can obviously learn this at work, and I think I was doing a good job of learning this very, very quickly. As I said, one of my ambitions is to keep growing.
Yeah.
But I decided, okay, look, I'm going to do something that sort of quickly bridges the gap here. Yeah. So again, I decided to pursue a master's. So this time I did an MBA, and I was back in Europe doing an MBA. Okay. So I did an MBA, and then I came back, and I think that sort of settled me because now I could feel complete. Yeah. I think I could sit on the table with everybody, sort of have a very useful conversation and sort of contribute. Yeah. And then I began to see that in terms of my contributions, I think I was quite happy because then I could sort of influence things, shape, sort of the direction, be useful in the things that, I thought the company wanted me to do, and also what sort of colleagues wanted me to do in terms of, working in teams. One of the great things about this company, CEC, is that it's a company where we've built this culture of working in teams. And generally, if you don't believe in working in teams, you probably find it very strange to work in the company. And therefore, one of the things that we have to teach the new people, the fresh graduates, really is teamwork. Okay. And because we're quite big on teamwork, and what you see is everything that we do has to be done, through teams. And I think it's probably every company that does that today as well. It's all about, because that's how life is. I mean, you're obviously stronger in numbers than as an individual. So I think I've come through that, and then I was, I think, quite privileged and lucky in a sense that what tends to happen in CEC is that once in a while we tend to run a process that identifies future leaders.
Okay.
And so I was invited to participate in that process in sort of my mid-30s. And fortunately, I was told I did quite well in the process, and therefore I was put on a program to be part of those future leaders of the company. And so when the top positions started opening up, and my first top position was that of commercial director.
Yes.
So I was given that position, and I think for me it was such a great opportunity. Obviously, sometimes we've got some doubts in terms of am I
ready
cut out for this job?
Yeah.
To have what it takes? But then with determination and sort of focus, but also more importantly, understanding why it's important to be able to work with people, provide that direction to people, motivate them, inspire them. I think I was able to sort of perform quite well in that role.
Yeah.
And I think I was in that role for probably 2-3 years. Then I was moved to another role, which is called the Chief Operating Officer, which is more like the 2IC to the CEO.
Yeah.
And I only stayed in that role, I think, for 1.5 years before I started acting in the sort of CEO role. So yeah, that is sort of my I think my career path.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I think have sort of marked my path as well in terms of my career.
Yeah. So I must commend you. You are a very good storyteller. And you're making my job very easy because of the way that you are weaving the story and answering multiple questions. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the chat and the way that you're sort of painting the picture. So you've talked about how you transitioned from the engineering now to management. One of the things that we focus on when we're doing these interviews is the leadership side of things.
Right.
And I don't know what you believe about whether or not leaders are born or they're made, but I'd like to know how your own leadership evolved. Yes, working with teams is one thing, but I think when you become, especially with the way you were rising very quick, I'm sure you had some people that were your friends, but all of a sudden in 2 years now, you're above them. Then, so how then did you transition from a colleague to now a leader? And then how did you develop your own leadership philosophy?
No, great. Look, it's a lot of learning, I think, along the way. And I think, as you said, some leaders are born. And I also believe that leadership can be learned, to use the American language. Instead of learned, it can be learned. I believe that leadership can actually be learned.
Okay.
Because there are so many books and a lot of theories and philosophies have been developed about leadership. Let me just say there's a huge body of knowledge on the subject of leadership. And it actually hasn't started like in the last, let's say, 5 decades. I mean, this starts from the Bible. You actually see that there are a number of leaders in the Bible that you sort of could learn from, and a number of situations that are presented to people. So as a leader, you actually build your knowledge through experience. You actually become better through, I think, the knowledge that you build over the years, the experience, and I think with a sort of open mind, there are a lot of things that you learn. Of course, you can get a sort of acceleration in your growth if you marry that with a number of readings, as well as sort of formal trainings, things like webinars, things like listening to other leaders talk about their leadership styles, challenges, how they handle different situations. You actually realize that leadership itself, at the end of the day, because leadership exists in dealing with people, and it's actually quite contextual. Because there's no leadership where there are no people.
That is true.
There's no leadership where there are no people. And therefore, and when I look at leadership, and that's why people say leadership doesn't start with you having formal authority. Because a lot of times we look at a guy who has been identified as a leader and he's been crowned. For example, you look at the president and say, oh, he's a leader.
Yes.
Now, the reason I've given him a formal he's been addressed with this formal authority, but actually leadership itself, you see it even with kids.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it happens in the context of groups. You actually see it, kids are playing. You can actually identify a leader where kids are playing. So it's basically somebody taking up authority. I mean, I've seen this, and I'll give you an example. You meet as friends, let's say to have a drink and have a conversation. And I saw this after sort of taking a deep dive into what leadership means. And it's important, I think, for every leader to do that. And I think a lot of leaders do that, just trying to understand what's leadership, sort of looking for meaning. What does it mean to be a leader? And then you actually begin to see it in the context of group dynamics. So you could meet, you're having a good time, but actually when you look back, people did assume different roles at different time during the time that you were actually, having these conversations. And that actually happens with a leader, because a leader is somebody who assumes different roles based on situations. And that's why people talk about leadership is situational.
Yes.
Because your role could be very different. I mean, you could be in a setup where you sort of require to take a sort of back row a little bit. You're in a setup where you're required to sort of take a front seat. I know people say you can't lead from the back, but there are times that you need to sit back and allow your team to do things, and that allows them to grow. Now, as I said, these are obviously things that you sort of learn, and you begin to sort of develop these leadership frameworks and sort of principles that guide your leadership. And I think I've over the years sort of developed things that I think are quite important to my leadership. And one of them, as I said, is authority. And I don't believe in authority given to me, but I believe in authority that you assume because it's necessary to get things done. You need to assume a certain type of authority in this situation. And the best example I can give is, I always talk about this even in the company. When you look at an airline and you look at the air hostesses, so normally when you get on a plane, what do you observe? These guys are very nice. They're asking you, for example, hey, are you happy with this seat? How can we sort of make it comfortable for you? If you're in business, they ask you what do you want to drink. Is it champagne? Is it juice or whatever it is? But after some time that changes, particularly when they know, oh, now we have closed the doors, we need everybody to be in seat belts. They become bosses at that point, and they become quite authoritative.
They change,
They change.
The tone changes.
The tone changes. If they find you're playing with your phone, you haven't put on your seat belt, they give you commands at that point. So it's as I'm saying, it's kind of situation. It changes, and you have to learn this, in your leadership and sort of develop your principles. And that's why I was saying, for me, something like taking up this authority is important, but use it properly and take it up differently in different situations. And then the other important thing is cultivating this trust with the people that you work with. Having empathy and cultivating trust is very, very important. And then the other thing that I look at, and I think this is also important, is authenticity in your leadership and identity. I mean, I did talk about authority, but where does authority come from? In my view, authority comes from being authentic as a leader, developing your identity, which means you have your identity and then you've got consistent values. Okay, so you've got your identity, you've got consistent values. And as I say, you take up the authority. It's not like it comes automatically. You sort of, it's like respect, you earn it. And for me, it's the same with authority. You don't impose authority. You need to take it up through the meaning that you give to what's important to you in terms of the values and how consistent you are in the way you treat people, in the way you come out in terms of the things
Yeah.
that are important to you and the business. So that becomes important. And then the other aspect I think that I would speak to is sort of engaging and inspiring. I think that's important. Every leader has a role in terms of, you know, engaging their people and trying to inspire their people. And these roles could be different.
Yeah.
And you know, in the past, not too long ago, there came a time when this sort of charisma factor was defined as a good quality of a leader.
Yes.
But people realized actually there's a sort of dark side of charisma, which is people sometimes perceive it as being manipulative. Okay, and therefore people moved away from that very, very quickly and started talking about just authenticity. You know, you don't necessarily need. I mean, people are just charismatic. There's nothing wrong with that, but they need this authenticity.
But it's not a prerequisite.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a prerequisite to leadership.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's something that you obviously learn over time, and you obviously become a good leader, focusing on sort of growing yourself over time. And I think for me, that is sort of the path that I've sort of come through.
Yeah.
And I look back, for example, from the time I took up my role as CEO to where I am today, which is 10, 11 years later, I actually think I'm a very different person. I hope that's how people see it.
Yeah.
And I would say the most important thing that one should bring to leadership is sort of the energy and the willpower. And the trouble is sometimes is that obviously the longer you stay in a role, particularly the energy sort of starts to go down. And that's why I said growth is important, sort of rediscovering yourself.
Defining.
Sort of rediscover yourself, re-energize yourself, as well as ensuring that, you know, the willpower actually does not go down.
So how are you doing that? Because I mean, like you said, it's been 10 years. You've probably seen many different scenarios. So sometimes it can start to feel a bit repetitive. Oh, so how are you reshaping yourself? How are you year to year changing your frame to make sure that you're still engaged and excited about it?
That is true. I think, as you said, the most important thing is to remain engaged. It's quite key. But one of the key things is that you have to understand that there are two things generally that happens to anything on this earth. It's either you discover yourself or you die. Okay, and businesses, I mean, there are good examples of businesses that have sort of died over the years. And therefore, it just tells you that from a sort of strategy perspective, a business today needs to make sure that it continues to assess its strategy, its relevance in the context of the environment. And I think for me, excuse me.
No, please. Yeah.
For me, it's one of the things that really keeps me re-energized. Because I sort of understand, for example, where the business was when I sort of took over, and I look at how far we have come. And sometimes there's some kind of resting on these laurels, if you will. But if you think about the reason the business exists, and the sort of capabilities that we have built over the years, you think about the assets that the business has acquired over the years. It keeps you thinking to say, I mean, these things don't just benefit the owners of the business, they actually benefit the sort of wider community, the country itself. And then you look at the challenges that, you know, the country is facing, and then you get motivated that, look, there's a lot more that we can do as a business to sort of add value, not just to our shareholders, but, you know, to the wider community in this country. We can contribute. This country can be a much better country. And, you know, the people to do that are obviously the entrepreneurs. And therefore, one of the big things that I look for in individuals is their willingness to grow, but also their entrepreneurial sort of mentality or mindset. I think for me, that is very important. Because a guy who's sort of entrepreneurial, they enjoy their success for 1-2 days, but they're looking for another challenge.
What's the next
The
thing?
following day, they're looking for another challenge. And so, I mean, I always even tell people in CEC that when we employ, really, this is what we should be looking for. Because if we can have a handful of guys like that, those are the guys who change a business. And those guys actually drive even the bosses, because they're always coming up with new ideas. And all you need is to provide space for guys like that to actually excel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can imagine that right now you've probably got a new burst of energy, especially with the challenges that the country is going through. It's no secret that we are in an energy crisis, and I think CEC has been one of those important companies that has actually led this transition. In the past, in Nkwazi Magazine, we've covered the 200 million green bond. We've also covered the commissioning of the Riverside plant. So all those are very big strategic milestones, and I think the company should be commended for doing a fantastic job with really thinking about the future and serving the economy as a whole. So I just wanted to touch on that particular aspect, especially with the challenges that we have. Where is CEC sitting in terms of what's your view of these challenges, but also how are you positioning yourself to be a solutionist to this crisis that we're currently going through?
Yes, you're right. I mean, the country is faced with this challenge, this crisis. And as I said, we had this crisis in 2008, 2009. We had it again in 2014, 2015. The only difference is that the current crisis is obviously much deeper than what we've experienced before. So admittedly, it's a big challenge for everyone. And I think there's no one who can come up and say, look, I have a sort of quick solution or quick fix for this challenge. And I think problems are only solved if you understand their full context and their full and proper context. It's very important that we really define the problem properly that this country is faced with. And for us as CEC, we certainly take this as a challenge. We think it's an obligation on CEC to be part of the solution. We are called to provide solutions to this challenge. And obviously, solutions are at very different levels. There's sort of the short-term solution, which is just to provide some level of relief. Okay, we're not going to solve this thing. Anybody who says, oh, I'll solve this thing next month, is like, I think we have to understand that we can provide some relief, and this relief can come in various forms. One of them is obviously to import power. And at CEC, we are doing that, particularly for our customers, because our customers were asked to cut back in terms of their demand. And most of our customers are mines. And if they cut back, the difference is that if you ask a mine to cut back by 10%, 20%, this could affect one of their processes. But remember, these processes are basically linked. So this could have a domino effect, which basically means if this process doesn't work, the next process doesn't work, and in the end, the mine can't operate. So what we've done is brought in imported power to make sure that these mines are still getting 100% of their power. And of course, the imported power is a lot more expensive. So these mines are being called to pay a lot more than what they pay ordinarily. So again, there is a lesson to be learned. Should we possibly increase the tariffs so that we motivate more investment? Because remember, one of the reasons that investors in power generation keep raising is that the tariffs are not what is called cost reflective. Zambia has relatively low. In relative terms, Zambia has lower tariffs compared, let's say, to our neighbors. However, when we invest in these technologies, they cost more or less the same in all the countries. So obviously, if you want to invest, you're looking at a country that gives you a better return than you get, for example, in Zambia. And sometimes it's very difficult, for example, to get a reasonable return if the tariffs are low. So there's, I think, an economic signal there to the whole country to say, look, we need to change our view of tariffs. We need to try and increase tariffs to motivate investments. You talk about our investment in renewables and in particular solar. So obviously we did raise and register a green bond of $200 million, and we did use the first tranche under this $200 million to invest in Riverside solar project, which is a 34 megawatt solar project. We did invest in what is called the Timpi 1, which is in Ghanaton. Solar project, which was a 60 megawatt project. This project was commissioned earlier this year. So that these two are actually running and contributing some power to the system. We are not stopping there. So we've basically gone ahead to look at what else can we contribute as we speak. I mean, just maybe in terms of numbers. So these two projects from that green bond, they used up 54 million under the first tranche. The million.
So they're drawing $200 million.
And now we're working on a 136 megawatt solar project. And so we're finalizing our second tranche under that $200 million. And we think this 136 million is going to cost us around 80 million in total, $85 million. This project will be starting in November in terms of construction.
It's in the Copper Belt as well?
It's on the Copper Belt, still in Kitwe. And we hope to complete that by sort of October, November next year. We should be commissioning that project. We are doing another project with one of our partners. This is a 40 megawatt and a program. Again, it's a government program called Get Fit Solar.
Yes.
So we're doing a 40 megawatt. We are busy raising money for that. That is not part of the 200 million. So under the 200 million, we're doing other projects, which is just a CEC project. So we're in the process of raising money for this one. We are hoping to reach financial close, which basically means the money is available for the project and we are ready to start construction in December. So in as far as the sort of renewables concerned, we've obviously taken a very, very active role in bringing new investments to the country and contributing to the much required diversification or energy mix that this country needs. I mean, so what I've described here talks about what we are doing on the Copper Belt. However, we are not ending there. So we've gone and looked at the country needs a lot of these projects. I mean, they are solar, they're obviously variable and all that, but we have to take advantage of what we've got. So we've got reservoirs at our hydro sites, and once the rains come back, we need to be able to manage those reservoirs in a far much better way than we've done in the past. And these renewables will obviously help us to do that. So if we've got enough renewables, what we'll then do is that the renewables will give us power during the day. And so we'll be getting very little power from the hydros, which is just the power to sort of control the variability or the changes that's happening with the renewables. And I think that's a sort of strategy that I've heard even the government talk about, I've heard ZESCO talk about that. So what we then want to do is to contribute to that story by building about 400 to 500 megawatts outside the Copper Belt of solar outside the Copper Belt. So those are projects that we are discussing with government, and we think will be starting soon, rolling out those projects, obviously in tranches, in tranches of sort of 125 megawatts per site. And we are not ending there. We think as CEC, we've obviously found quite a bit of success in Zambia. We've worked very well with governments. I mean, we always try to be a very, very good corporate citizen, and we are always, I think, deepening understanding of our role and the sort of benefits that the country can get from us. So as part of our corporate social responsibility, one of the programs that we want to roll out, again, it's part of the solar program that we are doing, and we want to start with 30 megawatts. So as part of our corporate social investment, we want to roll out a 30 megawatt solar program. And this solar program will basically be targeted at, let's say, cooperatives and SMEs.
Okay.
So what we want to do is to come up with 3 to 5 megawatt solar projects that fit the 30 megawatts, which means if we do 3 megawatts, then we're going to have 10. If we do 5, we're going to have 6 across the country. And what we do there is that we run some process, identify, let's say, cooperatives, identify SMEs that we can support. So we provide the technical know-how in terms of designing and just in terms of supporting the project. And then we provide what is called offtake. Now, offtake is very important in our industry because you don't get financed unless you've got a credible offtaker of your power.
Yes.
So we will be making our balance sheet available to support those SMEs. And why do we want to do this? We believe that, as a country, to grow, we need to be able to support the SMEs. And there are obviously various ways that different companies support SMEs, but we are in the sort of energy, electricity industry. And one of the ways we can support is what we've noticed, there's a lot of small players who are trying to do these projects. So we can help. First of all, what we did when we built the Riverside project was to try and make that project available to CBU.
Yes.
So sort of supported in terms of upskilling our students. Yeah. So not just building capacity in terms of energy, but we're also building capacity in terms of human capacity. Now we want to continue that human capacity story by supporting, as I said, SMEs or cooperatives through these small, relatively small projects. But we think these will go a long way in terms of just creating value at that level, at sort of community level. So that's something that we're quite excited about, and it's something that we're busy working on, and we think it will be quite useful in supporting our communities.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. So just to make sure I understand it, so you pick SMEs, you equip them with the technical
skills
to create. Is this like a mini grid sort of solution?
Well, it will be connected to the grid because we need to offtake it as it is. Now, for the power to reach us, it needs to go through either through our grid or through the Zesco grid to find us.
Okay, and you only offtake that 30 megawatts.
So we need to speak to financial institutions, get the financial institutions to obviously support the SMEs in terms of the financing of the project.
Yeah.
But we think because we are providing the CEC balance sheet to make these projects bankable, so these projects should be able to be financed. So that's the sort of conversations that we're also beginning to have with financing institutions, and we're getting a lot of interest in terms of institutions that will be willing to support these SMEs. And the good thing is because we've got CEC Renewables, which in the CEC sense is a center of excellence as far as solar technology is concerned. So CEC Renewables then will train these SMEs, provide the technical know-how, upskill them in terms of human capacity. And that I think just fits quite well in terms of getting these projects on board.
So what's the total installed capacity of CEC right now? I mean, if you total up the solars, CEC doesn't generate, no?
Interesting. So look, at CEC, we look at ourselves as a company which has what we call a portfolio of generation.
Okay.
And in our portfolio of generation, we've got third-party supplied power, and then we've got our own generation. At the moment, of course, third-party supplied power is in larger quantity than our own generation. So our own generation consists of, we've got what are called gas turbine alternators, and then we've got the solars. At the moment, in terms of solar, we have 94 megawatts.
Okay.
We're busy doing almost 200 megawatts now, which means that will move it to almost 300 megawatts. And then, as I said, we'll be starting the 400 megawatts, which is outside the copper belt, 400, 500 megawatts across the country. So obviously that, I think in terms of the contribution to ensuring that this country doesn't have to experience what we're experiencing today is quite key. However, we're not ending there. We're obviously looking at what we can do from a sort of base load perspective. So we have been discussing with government, looking at some of the hydro solar sites. We're looking at hydro sites that are kind of sizable, such that when we get to do this in partnership with others, we're sort of making a big difference, or making a dent in terms of the supply gap that this country is experiencing today. But more importantly, I think creating that resilience in terms of experiencing this situation, I think in future. So we're looking at probably doing some of the hydros that are, say, in the northern and Luapula provinces, because these provinces are in a different part of the country, and in terms of the rainy season, they tend to receive a lot more rain. So we are one of those parties, the other parties looking at this, and we're sort of open to working in partnership to support the country to get these new hydro plants done as well. So we obviously trying to do a lot more. I mean, we are, in a sense, this infrastructure, sort of energy infrastructure company. And whatever we do, all our businesses, I mean, we have different business activities. I know we haven't talked about that, but our business activities basically ride on the infrastructure that we build. So we are keen to support government, not just through new generation, but through new transmission infrastructure. The government has enacted new policies. Open access is one of them. And now, open access is such, I think, a big step in terms of moving our energy sector forward, but also just in terms of moving Zambia forward. Because what it does, it opens up the sector a lot more. It allows more players to come in, and players can choose where they want to play. Do they want to play in generation? Do they want to play in transmission? And sometimes people talk about generation, but it's very difficult to get power to where it's required if we don't have transmission. So we do need investors in transmission. Absolutely. We do need investors in distribution as well. So as CEC, we, being an infrastructure business, we're quite keen to work with government and, be able to roll out some of these required infrastructure in the country.
Yeah, so we've talked about, obviously, your business journey, the CEC side of things, which, like I said, is a conversation that can go on the whole day. But I sort of want to start to draw to a close now. And I wanted to understand your so obviously, running this business, it's busy, it can be stressful. So I wanted to get to know you a little bit outside of work. What are some of your coping mechanisms? Any hobbies? What takes your mind off the power and energy and business side of things?
Okay. That is extremely important. I mean, everybody talks about sort of work-life balance. And as you say, it can be quite stressful in these jobs. One of the things that I try to do, even on a sort of busiest day, I try to work up to like 4:30 p.m. And then thereafter I try and do something for myself.
Yes.
So either I read an article, or if I'm reading a book, I'll read a chapter or two. I try to, sort of end my day at work like that. Normally what happens is that when you go home, then you sort of have time for family, and you make sure that you have a meal with family. I love my dinners with family. And then thereafter, again, I try and do something like that for myself. I think for me, that routine, I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm actually so used. However, in terms of how do I distress? One of the things is I love Football.
Okay.
I love football so much. And
Man U fan?
no,
Gunners.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, it's either those two. There's some Liverpool people every now and again.
Remember, CEC sponsors Power Dynamos.
Power Dynamos.
So whenever I get a moment, I want to watch Power Dynamos. But
Absolutely.
also, having grown up in Mufreda, I'm a Wanderers supporter, Wanderers for life.
Yeah.
And at one time, I was actually chairman for Power Dynamos. Today they call it president. Yes, I was. And I always struggled when Power Dynamos was playing Mufreda Wanderers.
Yeah.
And I think,
where do your loyalties lie?
Exactly. And if the guys remember, during those times,
Yeah.
I would not put on either the Power Dynamos Lipnica or Mufreda Wanderers. I would go in a sort of normal t-shirt. Neutral.
Yeah.
But look, that's me. But the other thing about me is that I love to exercise. So I think the CC gym is probably one of the best gyms in the country, and I think it's probably because of myself. I have to admit it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just love going to the gym. I love to run.
Okay.
I love to do a few things. I mean, I don't love.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
The smart pork belly.
I think it's probably.
Yeah. Thank you. Looks good.
Sure. And a ribeye for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, please enjoy your meal.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Please let's
Sure.
let's dig in and enjoy the food from a restaurant that you recommended.
For sure.
Do you need anything else?
Nah, just ketchup would do, I think, for me.
Yeah, so you're talking about the CC gym.
Well, so my idea of distressing is sort of running, walking,
Yeah.
and doing a few other things that my trainer recommends.
Yeah.
So I actually, I mean, one of the things that you need in these jobs certainly is stamina.
Yeah.
It can be quite
Both physical and mental stuff.
yes, physical and mental stamina. It can be quite stressing.
Mhm.
So you always need to make sure that you sort of working on creating that stamina.
Yeah.
You watching what you are eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, I mean, the look, things happen in life.
Yeah.
What I normally call life-changing events,
Yeah.
particularly in terms of our health. As you obviously age,
Yeah.
you're not the same person, and therefore it just helps that you try to eat healthy, you try to exercise. Yeah, so I try and do that. I mean, once in a while, I love squash. Once in a while, I play a game of squash.
Okay.
That's how I de-stress.
So you recommended that we have this interview here at Prime Joint. Are you a regular?
At Prime Joint.
Yeah. Is this where we can find you if we're looking for you?
Look, I have to admit that I love their food here.
Yeah.
And whenever I want a steak,
yeah,
my go-to place is Prime Joint.
Okay.
And what I'm having now, which is a ribeye,
Uh-huh.
I think Prime Joint is got the best ribeye in Lusaka.
Mhm.
So I always come here for a ribeye. But more importantly, I've got a number of brothers that live in Lusaka. And if I'm staying over a weekend, this is our go-to place in terms of sort of catching up.
Yeah.
We always end up at Prime Joint on
Prime Joint.
sort of Saturday either for a lunch
Yeah.
or a dinner.
Yeah, it's a beautiful environment. We're sitting outside here, and yeah, they've got the indoor on the outside. Yeah, no, it's a good choice. I'm having the pork belly, so yeah, thank you for choosing Prime Joint. So we're now going towards the end of the interview, which is an interview that I've really enjoyed. I like I said to you, I commend you for how you've painted the picture. I feel like I'll leave this with a very broad understanding of yourself and your job. This is a bit of a lighthearted question, but if you could possess any superpower, what would your superpower be?
Endless energy.
Endless energy.
Look, there are times that
Not more time.
well, look, for me, that's sort of combines well with time, because there are times that you want to do things,
Yeah.
but you just get so tired, and you would wish you could go on, but you just can't go on. A time comes when, you know, despite the circumstances, it doesn't matter how much the pressures are, you need to take your time off work and go and distress.
Do you enjoy traveling?
I love it.
What's the best place that you've been to, that you've traveled to?
Wow.
And why?
When I was growing up, I'm actually trying to remember a book I'd read.
Uh-huh.
I'd read a book about Florence in Italy.
Okay.
So earlier on in my career, I think I was still an engineer.
Mhm.
I had an opportunity to go to Italy, and I really wanted to go to Florence City, and
To see it.
to see it. And I went there, and I think I was quite impressed. It sort of lived up to what I'd imagined when I read that book as a young guy.
Yeah.
So I sort of just fell in love with that city.
Okay. So Florence would be one of your favorites.
It is.
And how was it in Sweden? What are some of your recollections of Sweden? And because you said you went there for 2 years.
I was in Sweden for 2 years. I was doing my master's in engineering.
Mhm.
I was in a town called either Gothenburg or Göteborg. It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's sort of mid-size city, very beautiful. I was obviously staying in a place with very cold winters for the first time. But I should say, I found the Swedish to be very nice people.
Yeah.
I enjoyed actually my 2 years in Sweden.
Mhm.
I enjoyed my trips around the country, going to the northern part of Sweden, which could get as cold as minus 35 degrees Celsius.
And coming from Zambia, where winter is 14 degrees.
Exactly. I mean, it was obviously totally different. But I did have a very, very nice place. And the same thing with my tour of Switzerland. I did my MBA in Switzerland
Okay.
at an institution called IMD.
And yeah, that's a very renowned school.
Yeah. In a small city called Lausanne as well. Lausanne is very beautiful. Sort of really a very, very small, beautiful city.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you could look back and sort of give advice to your younger self, knowing what you know now about life and career, what advice would you give to your young self? Or to any, aspiring, there's obviously, young men, young women that look up to you. So, what sort of the big piece of advice that you would give to someone that's looking to build, a career as enriching as you have?
There are a lot of things when I look back. I obviously think I could have done better.
Mhm.
And I've obviously become a lot wiser over the years with the knowledge that I've gained, my experiences. One of the big things that I would advise is that to my younger self or a young guy of today is learn to set goals earlier.
Okay.
As I said, I think particularly in my 20s, I just wanted to enjoy life.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my engineering. I loved it. But I think I could have set
Better goals.
And sort of forecast much better.
Mhm.
I think I could have done that at that time. So certainly learning to set goals earlier and focusing on achieving those goals.
Yeah.
But as I say that, I have to remind people that you still need to enjoy life. Don't forget to enjoy life just because you're focused on achieving something. I think life has to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
And therefore this work sort of life balance is very important. Even as we focus on trying to understand the meaning of life itself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times there comes a time in life when you sort of find your purpose, your purpose in life, and then you start chasing your dream.
Yeah.
So
I'm now in my early 30s and I've been feeling that purpose thing as well. It just sort of dawns on you and you start to really...
Yeah, because particularly when you get to 40, and that happened to me when I got to 40, and that's the time I was just being appointed acting CEO. I think the moment came to me when I sort of looked back and asked myself, so now I'm 40, what have I achieved in life? And obviously you've got other people looking at you and saying, wow, he's doing so well.
Yeah.
But so at sort of individual level, you feel that you could have done better.
Yeah.
And therefore you sort of have this introspection.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that you have these more or less on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Just sort of getting this introspection of what do you think is your purpose in life? What are sort of your goals? What do you want to achieve in the next sort of 1 year, 2 years, which is sort of short-term goals? And then what do you want to achieve over the next 5 years? And the question is, how can you get there?
Yeah.
And as they say, don't get disappointed if you fail. You can only learn from failure, and then sort of pick yourself up.
Yeah.
And move on.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that I would say is I would advise everybody to marry at the right age. I think it's very important. Now, there's also a question: what's the right age? What's the right age to get married? I mean, I believe in family. I believe in family values. I don't think there's anything that has given me more joy than my family.
Yeah.
And I think everybody deserves to enjoy family life, whether you get to have children or not. But I think you enjoy to have a partner. If I can go beyond that, a partner from the other sex. I think I dare to cross the boundaries.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. You certainly deserve to enjoy life in that perspective. So try and find the partner and try and settle down as soon as possible. It's obviously going to help you.
Yeah.
In terms of remaining focused and staying focused on your goals.
Yeah.
The third advice that I would give to a young guy is start learning new skills early, broadening your horizon.
Yeah.
Never stop learning.
Yeah.
I know, particularly if you have done your first degree, and you go to industry, there's always a temptation to sort of just settle in. There's a lot of people in industry that have sort of settled in. You clearly can see that they have stopped growing. I would advise every young person never to stop growing. Growing is the only thing that will propel you in your life. So I think for me those three things are quite key. Never stop learning. Continue pursuing the knowledge. Continue to pursue knowledge. Continue to grow yourself.
Mr. Owen Silavwe, thank you for this time. It's been a fantastic interview. I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you for your time. And yeah, we'll end it here and enjoy this lovely lunch at Prime Joint.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Royd. I think I've enjoyed speaking to you as well.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's been, what could be best having a conversation while eating a meal that you love? Steak. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.